I think if Gronk didn't have the injuries that he had, that we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
You're probably right about that. I mean,
Yeah.
and if Aaron Hernandez didn't do what he did,
What did he do?
maybe Gronk.
What happened?
Allegedly.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back for another episode of the Ride the Pine podcast. I am Sean Sproat. Joining me, of course, is Kenny Hutton, Cameron May, Adam Freeman. Guys, we need to talk about our football picks. I think, Cameron, are we crowning a champion tonight? Can you tell me just yes or no real quick?
Nope.
Dang it. Okay, so we'll discuss our picks, and of course we'll make them for the Super Bowl as well. Before we kind of dive into everything, Cameron, do you want to do a really quick rundown of our socials? Where can people find us?
Yeah, you can find us on Twitter at PodRideThePine, on Instagram at pod_RideThePine. You can find us on TikTok at RTP-Kenny, and on YouTube, Ride the Pine Podcast.
Cool.
Thanks to everyone who interacted with us on Instagram. It was super fun of you guys to attack me for about 24 straight hours.
That's what we pay our social media manager for, is to essentially just get attacked online.
You deserved it.
Shout out to the guy who said I don't have a wife. That was just the bare minimum of research to look at my page.
That was my favorite comment by far.
Yeah.
Especially considering that guy's bio.
Yes.
No, that was a different guy. That was
a different guy. Either way, that guy was good too. Oh yeah, the guy with the bio was the guy that just put who won.
Yes.
He must not have watched the game because he was asking us. I mean, come on, pay attention at least.
Was it one of those bios that said like Christ follower and they just said the most awful, heinous shit?
Surprisingly, no. The bio said something about how he was looking for hot young singles or something like that.
Looking for a naughty time! ! Younger woman! ! Must be real. Straight to the point.
I got a whole bunch of random followers from just, I don't know if they're real or if they're bots or not. I can just send them to that guy.
Perfect. Look at you.
It fits his category. Younger women. Perfect.
Must be real.
So anyways, back to the actual games. Enough about our fun social interactions. Again, that is at pod_RideThePine on Instagram. All the reels, shorts, everything goes up there. We have a tie at the top of our picks right now. 8-8. Kenny and Adam going head to head for the Super Bowl. Where do you guys want to start? You guys want to start breaking down that Kansas City game?
Oh, geez. Wow, you're starting out early. Let's go Ravens Chiefs first. I like that. Because I think there's a lot more talking points about that. Because the other one's just going to be that somebody shit down both legs and they lost. Halftime was rough. Remember when Berube and Gunnarsson had the talk at the urinal between the second and the third period, or whenever it was? I don't remember. I think it was actually after overtime. Yeah. Apparently Dan Campbell did the exact same thing, except he shit in his pants and forgot how to do it. So I'm not sure what happened there. So we'll go to Kansas City and Baltimore first. To inform that guy of who did win, the Chiefs won 17-10. I thought it was going to be a track meet to start. It kind of started out that way. Would not have guessed the second half was going to go the way that it did. But it was interesting to see the Chiefs shut down a high-powered, what I would consider a relatively high-powered offense.
Shout out to 4 minutes into the game when Adam sent a text message to our group saying that this was a track meet and they were going to light the scoreboard up, and the score ended 17-10.
It ended with 7 more points after that. No, take that back. 3 more points after that, because I think it was 17-7 when I sent that.
Look, people have been sleeping on the Chiefs' defense all year. They are a very good defensive team. They've got a good secondary, which is obviously what you need to shut down a Lamar Jackson, who has essentially been neutered. Like they took what makes Lamar, his legs, and they made him kind of that semi-pocket passer. I think it's a completely different game if Lamar takes control and runs. They've got a stout linebacker core, and Chris Jones is arguably the best defensive lineman in the league. Like, if he's not number one, he is on, top 5, top 3. And that Chiefs defense does not get enough credit. Spagnuolo does not get enough credit. I feel like people just always look at Spagnuolo and go, well, he sucked as the Rams head coach. But yeah, sometimes these guys end up being, coordinators for life, and they're better in those positions. So
I didn't get to watch a ton of this game. I was out at the greatest sporting spectacle that anyone could see, Monster Jam. Still going strong, still trucking. Got to see a car get obliterated 5 seconds after walking in. Phenomenal show. Yeah, I still have to say, there was a lot of people wearing Kansas City stuff inside the dome, which just feels like rubbing salt in the wound and extra disrespectful.
Well, we know how you feel about them, but this game came down to turnovers. You can't win a game when you turn the ball over 3 times. That's exactly what Baltimore did. And because of that, they completely abandoned the run. For a team that led the league in rushing attempts through the regular season, they ran the ball 16 times this past Sunday.
Here's the even crazier stat off of that. In the entire week 1 to Sunday's game, until Sunday's game, they averaged 22 carries by running backs every game. They had 6 in this game. Like, I get it that if you get shut down, you have to stop. But Gus Edwards had 3 carries for 20 yards. I know one of them came late and he ended up, bumping the average, but he still averaged 6.7 yards. When your other 3 carries from your running backs come from Justice Hill and he's outgained by Zay Flowers, you can't abandon that. I mean, one of my favorite GIFs, whatever, is the guy that's just yelling, run the damn ball. That's all they had to do was to run the ball. When they're going to come out and they're going to run 14 times, that's insane. When you have the number 1 rushing offense, a team that gets on average about 5 yards per rush anyways, and 31 carries a game, you got to run the ball. Like, their wide receivers are not great. Why even rely on that? And it looked like for a little bit Lamar Jackson was going to be able to carry that team through the first half, maybe for the first quarter and a half at that point. But you got to run the ball. Like, that's the part that blew my mind, is that they just completely abandoned what they're good at.
Do you chalk that up to them just overthinking it, or are you going to give more credit to the Chiefs for completely taking them out of their game? If I'm going to answer my own question here, I think it's more of the former, of them just overthinking the game in general, because it's not like they didn't have the opportunity to run the ball. They had plenty of possession time that could have been significantly more. But yeah. I know Kenny's about to say give the Chiefs due, and I think he's right because of the amount of turnovers that they had.
Well, what I was going to ask is to really look into that stat. I would be interested to see how many times throughout the year Lamar Jackson was hurried, had to flee the pocket, was sacked, because I felt like he was sacked like 3 or 4 times in this game, and that just felt like a lot for what he's capable of doing.
He was sacked 7.9% of times that he dropped back, which was 25th in the league as far as highest amount. They were the 7th lowest amount.
So he doesn't get sacked. Mm-hmm. But I think, Sean, are you looking that stat up?
I'm attempting to find it now, so you can keep going. I'll see what I can find.
And, I mean, here's what we'll say. Patrick Mahomes, and he's always had this bad view, in my opinion, that he does enough just to get by. I think even if the Ravens would have tied that game up, I mean, he's going to march down the field and put them in position to win. Like, he just does enough. And Valdez-Scantling, holy shit, dude. Way to make the one catch you did all year.
Yeah.
Like, and then he tweets out the picture of the KC Wolf, the guy who was robbing the banks. He goes, at the bank. Like, dude, you made one catch all year. Like, shut the hell up.
Kenny, what stat were you looking for?
How many times Lamar Jackson got sacked on Sunday?
4 sacks, 17 yards.
Yep.
4 sacks. Okay. Does it say hurries or rushed out of the pocket or whatever they call that stuff?
No, but I think that's an interesting point, though, Kenny, is that a lot of people were saying going into this game is that the way that you beat Lamar is by keeping him in the pocket. It was by keeping 4 rushers, maybe a spy on him or somebody like that. Spagnuolo went with the opposite. Like they were bringing 5 or 6 guys consistently and trying to get as much pressure as they possibly could to force him to either move or get rid of the ball quickly, which paid off in the long run. I mean, I think he was 20 for 36. So he had a ton of attempts that should have equated to something. But yeah, I mean, and the other point, Kenny, of Mahomes doing just enough to get by, he was 30 of 39 for 241 and a touchdown.
That's really underselling what he did, though. I mean,
he did way more than have to get by. Like, I would take those numbers every day. One more touchdown, and that's a fantastic game. To miss 9 throws out of 40 and have 250 yards passing, that's awesome. And he probably would have had a touchdown in there with all the drops and stuff. I mean, still, I think that this Chiefs team is a different team. I didn't pick them to beat Baltimore because I thought Baltimore would be a lot more formidable on offense. And I think they did what they should have done on defense. I really do. Like, you can only contain that team so much. But this Chiefs team is a little bit of a different animal. I mean, they can play defense, and that defense is stacked.
Yeah, I mean, the Ravens did what they needed to do on defense to keep themselves in this game and give them a shot. Their offense just couldn't put it all together to really cement the win. And again, I mean, the Chiefs are a good team. They have great players. I'm not going to sit here and argue that the Chiefs aren't good and haven't been good for the past 5 years. I mean, it's very different to watch them now than it has in the past. Them having the best defense they can possibly have since Mahomes came on is definitely something that's shifting the team. But, I mean, at the end of the day, Mahomes is still Mahomes. I agree with Kenny. Even if it came down to it, Mahomes would have put together a drive to win that game.
Yeah, I agree. And what I was saying about the Ravens overthinking it, there was a pundit before the game, I don't remember which one, but they were saying that they had an inside source that the Chiefs were going to run a double spy on defense. They were going to have a spy at the linebacker position. They were going to run a spy in the secondary as well. And that's where it was like, did the Ravens just think that they were going to be able to throw the ball all over the field and take advantage of that? And they almost planned to keep Jackson in the pocket just based on information like that alone, and then the Chiefs didn't really do that? I don't know.
I would say so. I mean, you're talking about a team that was last in the league in percent of plays that were passing plays, and they totally abandoned that to go to a passing game. Like, their game is to run. I mean, they had to have thought something along those lines, but I mean, in the end, you still have to stick with what you're good at. Like, you have to go to the dance with the person that you brought, and that for them, that was the rushing game.
Yeah.
You don't have to. I mean, we've all been there. It happens. But
one thing, we can give the Chiefs credit, though. I mean, they continue that running attack, and that is not for the last 5 years. That has not been their MO. Their MO is to throw the ball all over the damn place. And Pacheco runs like he's mad at the ground. Like, I love watching this dude run. Like, it is insane. And they just kept on feeding him the ball. You know, Clyde Edwards-Helaire got in there a little bit, and he mixes it up. And, yeah, I mean.
But that's the one thing that I love about the Chiefs offense, though, is that they only had like 80-something yards rushing. Like, they averaged – it was like –
the stat
yards.
At the end of
the game was that I think Pacheco only had it was 2.4 yards per carry on 20-something carries or something stupid like that. But the difference that makes is that it opens up the play action. And again, you go back to what the Ravens do. The Ravens run the ball to open up a play action. When you have Patrick Mahomes who can run a play action with either Kelsey going on a corner or on a flat, you're going to get that 9 times out of 10. An RPO is going to dominate any team if you just keep handing them the ball. And that, like you said, they just kept doing it, and that's what worked.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned his name because Travis Kelce disappeared for 8 weeks of the season. Like, he was gone. Poof. Where is Travis Kelce at? He was on pictures of milk cartons in the last 2 weeks. He showed up. Back-to-back 100 receiving yard games from Mr. Kelsey. And I think that really helps the dynamic of their offense. Speaking of Kelsey's, though, what a shame. What an absolute shame that Jason was nowhere to be seen. He was thrust into a basement level suite and had to watch it field level. Poor bastard.
I wonder if that was on purpose, because I don't know if you guys noticed, and this stat always blows my mind because people get so pissed off. He was in the same suite again with Taylor Swift, and people are getting pissed off that they showed her too much, which somebody sent the number. It was only 40 seconds of airtime that she got the entire thing, and he got 20 seconds of airtime that they showed him.
They tweeted, I saw somebody tweet something out. She was on TV for 0.5% of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So less than 1% they showed her. I'm sorry. If you really loved them showing Jason Kelsey the week before with his shirt off and partying with the Bills Mafia, and you can't stand her just celebrating her boyfriend, you got other issues. I'm not going to say it because this is a sports podcast, but you got issues.
People need to shake it off. But the players are going to hate.
Coming.
No, just stop. You're done now. But I think Kelsey
Valiant
passed.
Attempt.
Yeah, Kelsey passed Jerry Rice for most receptions by a receiver / tight end in postseason history. That's anytime you can pass Jerry Rice, you're doing something right.
Yeah, for sure. And real quick, the best part of that conversation was whenever we were dropping stats and talking Travis Kelce. I know for a fact Cameron was just looking up Taylor Swift songs and lyrics.
I was not. No, I don't even have my phone down here today.
Yeah, okay.
He just hasn't written on a piece of paper. That's all.
I think everyone knows the lyrics to "Shake It Off." I think that song has transcended our music.
Yeah, I shake it off.
Before we move on, because we do need to talk about the other game, the one stat we kind of already touched on in this game is the Chiefs ran the ball 32 times. The Ravens ran it 16. At the end of the day, that's what won the Chiefs the game. I think we can all agree on that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Dan Pacheco
Next
would
game.
fit right in with Dan Campbell because he looks like he bites people, and Dan Campbell likes to bite kneecaps.
Speaking of Dan Campbell, he had a 17-point lead at halftime before completely blowing it, and now the Lions are still the only team in the NFL to have never played in the Super Bowl.
Can I just how goddamn disappointed I am. And Adam, you made mention of it, and George Kittle said it. Had us in the first half, not gonna lie.
That was fantastic of him, by the way.
First of all, it looked like nobody laughed at it. And I'm like, oh my God, he actually did it. But coaching malpractice, absolute coaching malpractice. You are inside your kicker's range, 4th down. I don't care what the analytics say. You're in a playoff game up by 17. Take the points.
I don't fault him for it. I mean, that's how they've gotten
What?
here. It's what he's built the whole thing on. And Badgley's their kicker who hits from that range on 65% of his kicks. It's not – and they make that play. It hit Josh Reynolds in the hands. Both hands. Worst place he can be hit with the ball.
I get that. I understand that. I see you, Cameron. But you have to take the points. Eminem's in the stand for crying out loud. Take the damn points.
I think the second time they went for it on 4th down, they should have taken those points to tie the game there. I agree on that one. I don't hate whenever they were up 14 or whatever and they went for it instead of making it a 3-possession game. I don't hate that one. I do disagree with whenever they had a chance to tie it with, 7 minutes left, and they went for it, didn't get it, and the 49ers got a touchdown right away.
I think the best line during that game was, I think it was the second 4th down that they went for. As they were lining up to go for it, whoever was announcing the game, I don't know which one of them said it, But he's like, usually when you go for it on 4th and long, you run the ball. But for whatever reason, Detroit decided to throw the ball on 3rd and long, and they missed that too. So now they have to go for it on 4th down, and I'm like, I agree with Kenny. You have to take the points. The crazy part of that was the article that I read that showed the actual like analytical numbers about it and why it explains to do that. But man, you got to kick the point. You have to take a chance. The whole point of that like exchange at the end of the game that they were talking about, you have to get to 30. You have to get to 30. The team that gets to 30 first is going to win this. Like, if he would have done that, they would have been at 29. Like, that would have been relatively close. And yes, there's the chance that he misses the field goal. It's, 2 out of 3 times he's going to make that field goal. But I mean, the other part of it, you got to blame the defense too. Like, it's not just on Dan Campbell going forward on 4th down. Like, let's face that. Like, they were talking today on the radio on the way home that I think his name's Aaron Glenn, who's the defensive coordinator, and they're talking about him and Ben Johnson and how apparently the Lions came out and said, hey, Ben Johnson's not taking another job, which good for him. I like the mindset that he's got with that. Take the job that you want, not the job you're given. But I don't know if I would be looking at Aaron Glenn as being a top defensive coordinator to come and take my team, especially after that. Like, you're up 24-7 in a massive game, and you can't stop them once to save some points from going on the board. That is terrible.
That secondary was nowhere to be found.
Oh, it was garbage.
And Aiden Hutchinson, I don't know if they were double teaming him, but he looked ineffective.
Kenny, do you want to know how many tackles he had?
I'm going to guess it was 1.
It was 0. Quarterback hit. He had 2 pass deflections. That's it.
To go back to the Dan Campbell point in the 4th down, I think, Cameron, you said it was like they make that like 68% of the time if they take a field goal there. This is according to statmuse.com. The Detroit Lions had 40 4th down attempts where they went for it this season. They made 21 of that, so they convert those just over 52.5%.
So I would look at it this way. Like those analytics, yeah, it's worse to actually go for it on 4th down. And look, I understand that analytic in college, right? Like college kids are more likely to screw up. It's more efficient for a college coach to go on a 4th down. Not at the professional levels. You're not talking about somebody missing a gap and something that's going to work less than 50% of the time. Like, you're in the playoffs. You have a chance to do something the franchise has never done. You need to seal it.
Yeah.
I agree. The analytics are there for a reason, though. Yes, you play the game. And I've had a long conversation about this in multiple text threads. It's just like baseball. The numbers are there for a reason because in the end, everybody ends up playing to the back of their baseball card or the back of their football card, whatever it is. But you have to, at a certain point, throw that out the window. Like, I'm looking at it right now. The 4th and 2 that they had from the Niners 28, the percentage to go for it and win the game was a 90.5% chance. If you kick the field goal, it's a 90.3. So either way, no matter what they do, they still have a 90% chance of winning the game with that outcome. Mm-hmm. The crazier one is the 4th and 3 from the 30. It was a 39% chance for them to win the game at the time if they go for it versus a 38.8% chance if they kick the field goal. So either way in that position, at that point, it didn't matter. That's the crazier part of it. Either one of those calls did not change what should have affected the game. But it did because they missed out on points. That's where it's like you have to use analytics when it's right. Like, you can't just be like, yep, that's what we're going to do. Computer says 90% of the time I'm going to go for it. No, like, think about the math. You're up, I think they were up 14 at the time of the 4th and 2 or 4th and 3, the first one. Get the 3 possessions. Like, we all know this. You get the 3 possessions no matter what, because then it becomes a numbers game to finish out the last of it. It's just like baseball. If somebody wants to sacrifice a bunt, you take the out because you only get 27 of them in a game. Like, you take the out. You don't try to force the play at second. you take the possession. You take that 3 possessions and you walk away happy.
I think that's ultimately like my point is you take the points because it is a war of attrition. Like football, if you really look at it, the clock runs so much in professional football. Like there's like, what's the stat? 13 minutes of actual gameplay. That might actually be very high. So you're talking about them wasting a ton of time. Like you have to take the points. But Cameron, you're absolutely right. Josh Reynolds has to catch that football. The defense has to make a stop. Like your biggest players in your defense, I believe a secondary that was actually pretty highly ranked, like just did not show. Yeah, I mean that is also the sign of a young team who was probably, overcome by the pressure. That the weight of what they were doing was finally thrust upon them. So we'll see. I just hope for Detroit's sake and Lions fans' sake, this is not a kind of a one and done thing.
We can ask that question. Do you think we'll see the Detroit Lions back here? Let's just say in the next 3 years. Do you think they're going to knock on another conference championship game?
I would say if the Green Bay Packers get the performance all year out of Jordan Love that they did towards the back third of the season, I can't say I see it. Like, because they're going to have to be in a position where they win the division to get, the higher seed. Because if they're in a wild card position where they're not playing at home, I don't see it. I really don't.
I would say no. I agree with Kenny. You have Jordan Love that's coming on as a very good quarterback. And honestly, I would throw the Bears into that mix too, because you don't know what you're going to get from whatever they're doing in the draft. Like, they have an opportunity to trade number 1, and they can get an ass load of picks at the end of it and keep bulking that roster up. Or they draft Caleb Williams, which I think is a huge mistake personally, and you might get like lightning in a bottle. I mean, you might have that number 1, that top prospect, the CJ Stroud that comes out and he performs well with your team. And they said it at the end of I guess it was the end of his press conference, that I guess he told the team in the locker room afterwards that this was their one shot, because now everybody has them in their crosshairs. And I don't think it was their one shot because of that. I think it's the one shot because the NFC North is going to start getting pretty good.
Well, and part of the other issue is the NFC is kind of down this year. I think you could legitimately argue that with the Eagles falling on their faces, you really had San Francisco and that was it. So it was primed for them this year. That's not to say I would have thought they would have beat the Chiefs at all. I think we did get a better Super Bowl matchup out of it, but opportunity squandered. And to do it in front of Eminem like that, man. And man, dude,
that was their one shot.
He had mom spaghetti on him because did you see him
coming out of halftime? They had vomit on their sweater already.
Did you see him flipping off San Francisco fans? And then they got him in the surrender cobra. I'm like, oh, you can't, you can't let him do you like that.
No.
Is anyone else hyper aware when you're at sporting events now? Like you're just scared to throw your hands up. You're like, don't get caught.
Yeah.
No, dude, I do not do it just because like I know ESPN fixates on it, and I am hyper focused on it. Even so much that if Charlie does it, I will like be like, dude,
tap him. Yeah.
Well, Charlie's an easy target to pick. He's like 6'5".
I mean, let's not discredit what the Niners did though. Like, you're talking about a team that literally got their ass handed to them in the first half. Not gonna lie, they got them, and then came out and just destroyed it in the second half. Like, they literally had, I think it was 5 straight possessions that they scored either a touchdown or a field goal. You had I'm going to call it a catch because he did catch the ball, but the bank shot off of the DB to Brandon Ayuk. Personally, I think he got into the end zone on that. I don't think he was really down, but whatever. And I also hate that rule. And then you had McCaffrey turn it on at the end too. That really just pretty much iced the game. And I think Brock Purdy is probably a top 12 to 15 quarterback, somewhere in that range. But that is a guy that did exactly what he needed to do to win that game. I mean, you're talking somebody that went 20 of 31 for 258, a touchdown, and an interception. It's not ideal, but he also ran the ball. He was able to elude some sacks. Like, he did what needed to be done to win that game and keep that team in it. And that's Alex Smith put it perfectly, that you're no longer a game manager when you do that. You're a game breaker at that point, because he can do other things. He can make plays. He's not the greatest in the world,
yes.
but he's good.
Yeah. Brock Purdy, breaker of chains.
Yeah.
To put that second half in context, the Lions were up 17 points at the halftime, right? By the 3-minute mark of the third quarter, it was even. It was a tie game. By the 3-minute mark of the fourth quarter, they were down 10 points. It's an ass whooping.
49ers are good. I also just learned this week that Brock Purdy can run, which seems alarming for everyone. He sneaky quick.
He's got them PF flyers. He'll be okay.
Yep. All right. I feel like we probably shouldn't do our picks for next week, right? Because since we have a 2-week break, we can go ahead and knock that out.
Yeah, let's save it.
Yeah, let's go ahead and save that. Any final thoughts then, guys, before we kind of hit the socials and get out of here on either of these two games or pretty much anything else?
Kudos to the NFL for going off the script, right? They pulled a WWE on everybody. Everybody thought for sure that it was going to be a Ravens and 49ers Super Bowl. Everybody thought that. The logo even said that it was going to be that. And the NFL scriptwriters pulled the old okie doke, decided to blow a tricep or blow a knee or whatever fake injury they wanted to rely upon to be able to get two other teams into it, and totally changed the script. Kudos to them on that one.
Yeah, the purple was actually referencing one of Taylor Swift's albums where she was wearing a purple dress. Is the conspiracy theory.
My real question, since Adam brought up WWE, is: will Travis Kelce be able to finish the story of arguably the greatest year in man's life? Like, he's won everything. He won a Super Bowl earlier this year. He's dating Taylor Swift. He has a chance to win another Super Bowl and probably retire. Like,
I don't know. He told Mahomes he wants 11 more years.
What?
11?
Well, that's what he said after the game. He's like, I could do this for 11 more years.
Dude talks about on his podcast all the time about he's going to retire soon.
Yeah, I think if they win, I think he retires. I really do. I mean, there's not much else that he can do. He's better than Gronk. I don't care what anybody says. Like, people are like, oh, he's not a blocker. He's not a whatever. Dude, he will flat out truck somebody if he has to. Like, it doesn't matter. He's the greatest tight end probably ever played the game.
I'm glad you said it, because at 3 Super Bowls, he probably surpasses Tony Gonzalez as the greatest tight end to ever play.
Thank you,
Chief.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for saying Tony Gonzalez. Because I think if
who did
Gronk
you think I was going to say? Jason Witten?
I don't know where you're going with it, but I think if Gronk didn't have the injuries that he had, that we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
You're probably right about that. I mean, and if Aaron Hernandez didn't do what he did,
what did he do?
Gronk.
What happened?
Allegedly. God, nobody knows for sure.
All right, like Cameron, where can everybody find us on?
Where's the suit, Ray?
You can find us on Twitter at PodRideThePine, on Instagram at pod_RideThePine, on TikTok at RTP-Kenny, and on YouTube, Ride the Pine Podcast. Cool. Sean, do you want to plug your Twitch as well?
No.
No, not at all.
Good. Very good.
All right, guys, let's get out of here. We'll be back next week. We're going to do a preview of Super Bowl. We might even have a bonus episode for you as well. A Healthy Scratch episode is coming at some point. Kenny and Adam, looking at you guys.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, whatever.
I got a lot of thoughts on Hockey Canada.
Yeah, we need to talk about that.
Horrible thoughts.
All right, let's get out of here, guys. Have a good night. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.